So we're here with Anne Widdecombe, candidate for the Brexit Party in the upcoming European elections for the South West. So Anne, what are your policies as an MEP, and what would you like to achieve for the South West if you're elected?
Well, first of all, we have one objective, which is to implement the result of the referendum and to get Britain out of the EU. We do not believe that the EU should be making policies which are going to affect Britain unless Britain makes those policies herself. That is the first point. The second point is the very obvious one. We have no idea whether we're even going to end up taking our seats there. If we do, how long it's going to go on, because of course the instant that a Brexit is agreed, at that point we no longer have any place in the European Parliament. Therefore asking for long-term policies within the European Parliament is a dead duck. We've got to concentrate on our aims and objectives.
Well, we at least know that the elections will take place. So
we do,
yeah.
But we only knew that yesterday.
Indeed. So you recently left the Conservatives to join the Brexit Party. What was it that motivated that decision?
Frustration, largely, a frustration which has been building over quite a period of time. Both major parties, not only the Conservatives but Labour as well, stood in 2017 on manifestos which said they would implement the result of the referendum. And indeed the Prime Minister's manifesto couldn't have been clearer. It said no deal is better than a bad deal. And ever since then, it hasn't happened. And no deal has been reached, and we still haven't left 3 years after the referendum. And I became concerned, and I'm still very concerned, about the situation we have where there's a real disconnect between people in Parliament. 52% of the electorate voted leave, 75% of Parliament are Remainers. And that has resulted in the present crisis. So I thought, right, what do I want to happen? I want Britain to leave. Who is going to deliver that? Well, none of the parties that are there at the moment. So I decided that I would indeed join the Brexit Party to send a major shock to Westminster. I think we did that in the local elections without even standing. But I think in the European elections we will really send a very strong message indeed.
Well, let's think beyond the European elections for a moment. If the Brexit Party is still doing as well as it is in the polls by the next general election, for example, are you at all worried that by taking votes away from the Conservatives, which is ultimately the goal, you might make actually a Labour government and therefore a softer Brexit more likely?
No, indeed not. First of all, I reacted with some horror there when you said that if we still hadn't left by the next general election, if we still haven't left by the next general election, I have no doubt the Brexit Party would absolutely sweep the board at that one too. And the idea, I mean, this election is not due until 2022, the idea that we wouldn't have left until then is pretty horrific. But let's take your question, supposing we haven't. Am I afraid that that would give Labour an advantage? No, because if you look at the local election results, there Labour was saying, very confidently saying, they were going to get 400 gains, they were going to gain 400 seats. Well, they lost 82 instead. Because what the electorate were doing was sending a message to both parties, to Westminster as a whole, to MPs as a whole, saying, we've had enough. And nowhere was there a greater indication of that than the 40,000 odd spoiled ballot papers where people had actually written Brexit Party or Brexit across their ballot papers. They'd taken the trouble to vote, but to spoil the ballot paper. And in those numbers, that's unprecedented.
So what form of Brexit do you favour? Deal or no deal?
If there had been a deal which took us out, and by take us out, I mean release us from their laws, from their border controls, from their clamp on our trade deals. If there had been a deal which delivered all of that, then that would have been fine. And we want a good relationship with Europe after Brexit. We want a trade deal, for example, with Europe after Brexit. All that would have been fine, but the fact is that hasn't happened, and I echo what the Prime Minister said in her manifesto, but has not lived up to, which is that no deal is better than a bad deal. So if you ask me now what sort of deal I want, I've run out of patience, and I would say I want a clean break. The EU says it's ready for no deal. Our civil servants for 3 years have been working on the contingencies for no deal. it should be perfectly possible to deliver. I do not buy into Project Fear Mark II, which says that all would be chaos the next day. Be a few bumps along the way, bound to be. But in reality, Europe doesn't want chaos in its ports. The EU doesn't want chaos. The EU wants to go on exporting to us. The reality is that it would not be anything like as catastrophic as people think.
Well, you touched on the results in the 2017 general election and the mandate from that. 80% roughly of the population in that election voted for parties which had a deal as their first option in the manifesto. So did every voter then and did every voter in the 2016 election vote for no deal?
I mean, Theresa May wasn't saying her policy was no deal. What she was saying was that if it came to it, no deal was better than a bad deal. But she didn't stand on a policy of let's go without a deal tomorrow morning. I mean, nobody was saying that. Nobody was saying that. And you know, I mean, I consider I've been reasonable for 3 years just waiting for this deal. But it hasn't happened. And you have to look at the fact now that the Brexit Party is way, way ahead in every poll, not just in most, but in every poll that has been done for the European elections, and we're the party asking for a clean break. Now, if that acts as a catalyst to the government and to the opposition to come up with a deal that takes us out, not a customs union, which means we can't do our own trade deals, not alignment with a single market, which means we have to accept a free movement of people and can't control our own borders. But if we have a proper deal as a result of people saying, let's go without, fine.
Well, do you think there is a democratic majority in this country for no deal?
I think there's a democratic majority in this country for leaving. And at the moment, all the polls are showing that the one and only party, which is saying clean break, if that's where we have to go, clean break, is the party that is leading in the polls. Now, that's all that I can deduce as to where the democratic majority lies. And as I always say, the poll that really counts is the one on the day.
Well, your party leader, Nigel Farage, said a couple of days ago that if the Brexit Party were to win these European elections by a landslide, that would be equivalent to a vote for no deal. How can that be the case when the average turnout for a European election is 30 to 40%?
Oh, well, we don't know what the turnout is going to be. That is very clear. If people were very, very afraid of no deal, then they would indeed go out and vote. And I think Nigel Farage is quite right. I mean, we would always say, here is an election, here are the mandates. If a particular mandate wins, then that is what is democratically compelling to do. I don't see any reason to rewrite the rules for the European elections.
Do you not think that it might be legitimate to consult the people again and see if the mandate is still strong after all the Brexit chaos? Or are you worried at all that the will of the people might have changed over the last 3 years?
I don't believe the will of the people has changed. There's certainly no sign of that at the moment. Let me finish. I do not believe that, I'm going to say this because you asked me the question, I do not believe that the will of the people has changed, and indeed, with opinion polls going at the moment in favour of the Brexit Party, clearly it hasn't. People just want Brexit. I've had Remainers saying to me, just get on with it, just take us out, just get this over. People are very, very tired of the chaos. Sorry, what was the major question?
Do you think it's legitimate to consult them again after the whole process has happened?
I have always despised a situation whereby a government gets the answer it didn't want and then asks the same question. It happened in Denmark. I vividly remember I lived through the Maastricht Treaty because we did it by parliament rather than plebiscite. But most countries actually did a referendum. And the Danes said no, they didn't want it. So their government just asked the same question again. The Irish have been asked the same question twice before in the past. And I don't believe that. I believe when you have a simple question, as we did, in out, when you have a simple question and you've got a majority and the nation has spoken, then it is your duty to deliver.
Well, the Brexit Party, as you've just articulated there, rejects the sort of classical notion of a second referendum with the one with an option to remain. But since the deadlock in Parliament and seemingly the deadlock amongst the population of this country is how we leave and not necessarily whether we leave, what do you think of the prospect of going back to people again without an option to remain, but with a number of different deals on the table, this deal, no deal, a different deal?
I do not think, first of all, that it is reasonable to ask the electorate to distinguish between different nuances in a particular type of deal. First of all, I just don't think that's reasonable. Secondly, as far as I'm concerned, as I've said before, my principle is we've had the answer. Now, the fact that there is a deadlock in Parliament is not the fault of the referendum or of what the people wanted. It's the fault of the politicians who don't want to deliver it. I mean, you've got MPs in Parliament who say perfectly openly, I mean, they don't deceive anybody, they say perfectly openly they want to remain. They want this chaos to continue because that way we stay. The EU want us to remain. Juncker said, just tell us what you want and we'll do it. Well, we did. We said we'll have the deal, but with legally binding assurances that we can get out of the backstop as and when we want to, not that we're going to be kept in there and therefore in a customs union forever. Did he give that to us? No, he didn't. The EU don't want us to leave. And in the end, we have to say we have to be proud and independent as a country. And we have to say we voted to leave, we are leaving. That is a very simple message of the Brexit Party. We are leaving.
Yes, but the question was not whether we leave at all. People have, as you say, the result is already in. People have said we should leave. But there's no denying there's a great deal of debate and a great deal of polarisation around how that's done.
Yeah, we made it very clear during the referendum that we wanted an outcome in which we controlled our own laws, controlled our own trade deals, controlled our own borders, and were governed by our own democratically elected government. That was what we wanted. And that is what the overwhelming majority of people with one, maybe with an emphasis on one rather than the others, or on all four, whatever it might be, that is what people were voting for. That's what was put forward. So I don't accept that giving up on those and saying, well, we'll leave in name only and we'll have some sort of Norway-type option whereby we have to accept whatever Europe says but actually have no say in that process. That is the worst of all possible worlds, and that is not leaving in anything but name. And the question on the ballot paper was, do we stay or leave in anything but name? It wasn't that. The question on the ballot paper was, stay or go.
Anne Widdecombe, thank you very much.
Thank you.